All right, hello everybody. My name is Bulos Abdallah. I am an advisor here at the School of Engineering Advising Hub. I advise mechanical engineering, and you're watching this probably because you are thinking about joining the mechanical engineering community here at RPI. Let's get started with Industry Hour. We've got some good things on the docket here. So real quick, I know this is our last one of the semester. You've probably watched a couple of these already or participated in a couple of these already. Just a quick overview of the CCPD from a mechanical engineering perspective, quick introduction of who our panelists are going to be, and then we'll just get right into the Q&A session um, from there. So who are the career counselors for the School of Engineering? It's going to be Emily Siles and Kristen Kettering. Both are outstanding individuals, very knowledgeable in their trade. They are experts in the engineering career realm. They know exactly where to go and coach you on where to look and what to do in terms of finding your very first career opportunity and getting your career launched outside of RPI. Um, Go to the website RPI or joinhandshake.rpi.edu. Sorry, rpi.joinhandshake.com is the link. That's where you can connect with Emily and Kristen. They do drop in hours every day. Like I said, they'll help you, they'll support you, they'll coach you, and help you navigate through uncharted waters in terms of finding your career, whether it's an internship or a co-op or even part-time stuff, just to help you get that resume started out. They have a tremendous amount of resources that are very valuable that you can take advantage of. Not sure what you want to do, they'll help you. Not sure where to go to apply to jobs, they're going to show you how to do that. Take advantage of these guys. The sooner you can get into their offices, the better. Even as freshmen, as you'll probably learn over the next hour here from our alumni, as well as Peter, our student. All right. Some more information about the class of 2022, some internships and co-ops that students landed in that year were at Lockheed Martin, with NASA, with Regeneron, full-time employers, General Dynamics, Global Foundries, Boeing, Epic Systems. Students that didn't want to continue, or students that wanted to continue their education and not work full-time, went to schools like Carnegie Mellon, Berkeley, Columbia, Penn, just to name a few. There's more lists on the CCPD website. I suggest hopping over there if you can. What can you expect to get paid? This is all ballpark numbers. Can't guarantee these salaries just because it depends on a lot of things. For example, what kind of job do you get into? Location, what part of the country do you go to? Sometimes the cost of living will affect your salary. Like I said, if you want to explore and learn a little bit more about what getting into mechanical engineering would look like for you in the end game, talk to the Career Center. They will shed all they'll shed some light on what your expectations can look like. Cool. Okay, so our panelists, we've got Joshua Adejon Moby, Emma Orsino, Francesca Lapinta, all graduated in 2021. Francesca, I think you earned your master's degree here though too, right?
Yep, I stayed for co-term, so I graduated with that 2022.
Awesome. Okay. You're gonna have a chance to talk all about that. I apologize for getting that number wrong there. And
All good.
Peter, Peter Iasconi. Shoot, I should have asked you before. I'm sorry. Awesome. And Peter, currently are a senior here at RPI studying mechanical engineering. So we're going to get to know our panelists very soon. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll get the questions rolling here. Actually, before I start with the questions, I'm going to turn the table to our panelists. Josh, I'm going to pick on you first. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you're studying or what you studied, where you live currently, and what you're doing currently?
Oh, so as you hear, I actually have a son So I graduated in 2021 from RPI. I did
All right,
research
Joshua,
there.
I think we're having some microphone issues, which is strange because I just was hearing you talk a couple minutes ago.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Emma, let's move on to you. Maybe we can come back to Joshua in just a moment here.
Sorry, did you, my Wi-Fi's cutting out a little bit. Did you call on me next? Sorry.
Okay, testing, testing. Josh, I could hear you fine. I think it might be Bulos.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That's okay. But I can hear you, and you mentioned your son and graduating at RPI, so keep going with that.
Okay, perfect. So then I left to go and get my master's degree. And I got my master's degree in pharmaceutical nanotechnology at the University of South Florida. And at the current moment, right now, I work for Bausch and Lomb Pharmaceutical, and I work as a process engineer. And then I actually run two companies alongside with my wife at the current moment. So we own a hair salon and a child's boutique. So that is currently what I'm doing, and I live in Tampa, Florida. So
Wow, very busy. So that's a lot going on. Very cool.
oh yeah.
And then we'll go to Francesca. Hopefully Wi-Fi is working. Francesca, can you hear me? Working on Wi-Fi. That's fine. Emma, you're up. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, what you're doing now.
So I graduated from RPI in 2021, but I started working at Plug as an intern in 2020, and I'm still there. I spent 2 years in the service department where I was their battery process and quality engineer before transitioning over to the reliability department, where I was a mechanical engineer for a year. And now I'm a systems engineer doing the same work as before, just focusing on the whole system rather than just mechanical components. And I am also doing my master's in engineering from RPI through the Rensselaer at Work program. And I am still in the capital region.
Awesome. I
Emma,
think we
thank
got
you.
Bulos back.
Yeah, thank you for taking over. It's just stupid stuff on my end, but we're back here. Francesca, are we able to get you back online?
Can you guys hear me okay? Is everything
Loud
good
and
now?
clear.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thank you guys. So hi everyone, I'm Francesca. Like Louis mentioned in the beginning, I graduated from RPI in 2021, but I stayed an extra year for the co-term program to get my Master's of Engineering, also mechanical engineering. I currently work for Deloitte as a consultant in the data analytics and cybersecurity space. So a little bit like not exactly like traditional mechanical engineering, but a lot of the work that I did during grad school and a lot of like the data analysis, data visualization I'm using while at Deloitte. So I found that really interesting. I'm originally from New York City and I am back home here in New York City working for Deloitte out of the office in Rockefeller Center. And yeah, I think that's everything.
Thank you, Francesca. And Peter, I'm going to pick on you next here.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Peter. I'm a senior this year, so I'm still here at RPI in Troy. And as of a couple weeks ago, I actually am staying for co-term, so I'll be sticking around for another year. But yeah, that's me. I got a little bit of internship experience that I know we're going to talk about, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So the first question, Francesca, I think I'm going to pick on you first here, just because you mentioned your job is like a non-traditional mechanical engineer, whereas Josh, Emma, and Peter, at least Joshua and Emma, definitely more traditional mechanical. But what makes your job, Francesca, non-traditional mechanical engineering? And is it something that mechanical engineers can find themselves doing and finding themselves to be, you know, easily transitioning into something like that?
Yeah, definitely. So to go a little more in depth with what I do, like I mentioned, I'm in the cybersecurity space for a consulting firm. So we work with different clients to help with their cybersecurity needs. And I know that sounds really big, but um, Specifically, what I do is cybersecurity. There's a lot of data that is available, and that data needs to be analyzed in such a way that it can be leveraged to either minimize vulnerabilities, to create new strategic initiatives, to develop new policies. So being able to analyze and understand the data is something that's super important. And like I did very well for at RPI, even before coterm, any sort of lab class that you take, and honestly, any sort of just class that you take, with any sort of assignment that you're given, the main objective of that assignment is you're given this sort of information. What kind of information can we garner from the things that you're given? And whether that's related to thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, it's the same thought process that you're using, and that thought process can translate to a lot of things very easily. So that even though I don't have like a traditional like cybersecurity or data analytics background, I'm finding myself prepared in like a different way than a lot of my colleagues and peers, and it helps bring a different perspective than what's usually there. So if you start off in mechanical engineering and you realize like maybe I don't want to do like something traditional where I'm in like the manufacturing field, I don't want to be on a factory floor every day, but I still want to like use my analytical and data in my like data skills. They're in consulting as well as like outside of consulting and like the general like data analytics, data visualization field. And like I said, I did a lot of that for grad school, just analyzing like large amounts of data. So that's where I am now. Hope that answers the
Awesome.
question.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Thank you.
If I can, is that fine?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of in your similar boat. I actually made the transition and jumped to pharmacy. So I completely changed what I wanted to do. And I agree with you 100%. RPI kind of sets you up because remember, at the end of the day, like everything's about learning. It just comes down to that, right? So if we can go ahead and isolate whatever it is, I work on compounding stuff. Give me 1 second.
So I think we lost Josh for just a
I'm
second
back.
here.
I'm back.
Oh,
So,
hey, there we go. Okay, go ahead.
So I work on compounding stuff and chemical reactions all the time, right? But I didn't have that training when I left RPI. But being able to go ahead and pick those skills up over time and seeing how to deliver, because what I really specify in and specialize in is how to deliver products and especially pharmaceutics to a particular spot in the body. So, being able to apply that, walking in and having to explain COVID-19 was my first assignment, but I had no idea about COVID-19 being a mechanical engineer. So having to do that research and read through a lot of papers and so on and so forth really helped to understand that because I was in my master's during the pandemic. So
Cool. Awesome. Emma, what about you? Like specifically, would you say your job is more traditional mechanical engineer?
Um, I would say yes, my job is more traditionally mechanical engineering, but it wasn't traditionally at my company. They prefer to use chemical engineers as our systems engineers, and we've more recently, my boss decided that he'd rather have mechanical. Well, he's posting for mechanical engineers now. Um, but yeah, I would say it's more traditional mechanical engineering. Definitely my current position. My first position was more of a management position that was disguised underneath the engineering title.
Cool. And then Peter, so you haven't graduated yet. You did tease us a little bit about your internship experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that? But also, towards the end of your answer, can you tell us what made you want to continue as a mechanical engineer at RPI?
Yeah, so I worked at a pretty small company in Massachusetts called CPS Technologies, and I was a manufacturing engineering intern there. So definitely very kind of mechanically focused. A lot of stuff that I have been working on in the classroom. I was definitely seeing a lot of similar stuff there. But I really enjoyed that. I kind of like, I guess my favorite part of engineering, I guess, would be kind of like that hands-on aspect. I like kind of getting to see what's being built and kind of like seeing the end product that we kind of wind up with. And I got to work on a lot of cool projects there. So that definitely kind of re-solidified my interest in the field, I guess, just to kind of it's just kind of helpful, like a sort of a reassurance that like, yeah, I'm working in industry. I actually do enjoy doing this stuff that I've been learning for 4 years. So yeah.
Awesome, cool. Joshua, then Francesca, then Emma. I'm gonna start a new question here for you. So think back when you were a student at RPI. Did you know what you wanted to do in life after RPI? And can you tell us a little bit about some of your experiences or even your internships or co-ops that helped you decide or helped you realize that this was the right choice or the right path for you guys?
Yeah, so I would say I was a little bit different. I walked in the door at RPI kind of having pretty solid guide of what I wanted to do. And my field was, or my mindset was to go ahead and get my engineering degree and then use that to be able to kind of jump into medicine. Because if I wanted to start up my own pharmaceutical company, kind of need to know how to make something. And then be able to get the medical background to be able to go ahead and have those discussions and sit in those conference rooms and speak with doctors. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind, and kind of working for Philips Healthcare started me in the medical device arena. And that's kind of where I still want to be, is really in the medical device. And then getting my master's in pharmaceutical nanotechnology helped me. I think the research with Professor Shi was very vital for me, because it allowed me to go ahead and to see what's the newest and the latest research that's going on right now. And then from that, be able to go ahead and apply that to what I really wanted to do in the future, which is work with nanoparticles. So I think it really set me up, and I kind of had that mindset beforehand. So it wasn't anything new. And that's kind of jump starting me on opening my own company actually at the current moment. So
Awesome. Francesca, over to you.
Yeah, when I started at RPI, I kind of had a similar mindset in that I was actually a BME when I first started. I wanted to work in the medical device field and work with like prosthetics and things like that, like very traditional, like BME kind of goals. But I actually took one of the courses for the BME program is Intro to Cell Bio. And from that class, I realized I hate memorizing things. I really like doing mapping, like really like having numbers, and I made the switch to mechanical engineering with the hope that I could like kind of do the BME on the side, like have more of a mechanical engineer focus and like kind of do, and so I had more of a technical background and just have the bio stuff on the side. So that was kind of the path that I went through during my undergrad. And then during my grad school, um, I tried to bridge the gap between the two with my research. So I did my grad research under Dr. Kristen Mills, who is a professor in the mechanical engineering department, but does research on cell biomechanics, specifically the cell biomechanics of cancer cells. So I was doing like a lot of mechanical testing on cancer cells and the medium that these cells grow in, so that cancer researchers can better understand the material properties of these um, of these cells during their experiments. So that was super cool, super interesting. I know I'm not in that space 100% right now, but like I said, I am using those sometime in the future. I make the transition back because I've been working at my job for about a year, and I'm realizing I'm still missing the engineering part of it. So there's a lot of things you can do and a lot of ways you can move around, but that's where I started.
Cool. Thank you, Francesca. Emma, over to you.
Right. So I started at RPI as a mechanical engineer, and I had previously done a summer research experience at RPI as a rising junior. So that had helped me narrow down that I also wanted to do prosthetics, and realized BME wasn't for me after spending a summer in the lab making hydrogels. So I went in as knowing I wanted to do mechanical engineer. And then my sophomore year, I got an internship at a local manufacturing company and really loved it. So that's what pointed me towards manufacturing. After that, I started taking some electives as manufacturing classes, since I had some space in my schedule. So I did a lot of courses online at HVCC to get ahead. And my second internship was at Plug Power, and I kept working there after the summer as a part-time employee, and then switched to full-time after that. And manufacturing engineering is really enjoyable, especially at a company like Plug, where we also have a research side. I started out as a process engineer, got to do the day-to-day hands-on crazy problem solving, data analysis type things. And now I'm more of a lab based, so I get to spend a year focusing on a problem rather than, 5 minutes. And it's definitely an interesting transition, and it's never boring. There's always some new problem to solve.
Awesome. And then Peter, for you, similar question, but can you walk us through what your journey has been like over the last 2 or 3 years, preparing you for a position in mechanical engineering for life after RPI?
Yeah, sure. So I definitely, I guess when I started out, I was kind of initially torn between mechanical and aero as far as picking my major. I kind of settled in on mechanical just because I saw it as like a more versatile option. So kind of just kind of less specialized, kind of having a broader foundation, I guess, to kind of pursue future interests later on. But so that was kind of what I went into the degree with, just kind of goal wise. And then definitely through internship experiences and things like that, I think you get a lot of useful experience there. It's just kind of useful to see sort of how an actual company functions and kind of how the stuff you learn in the classroom like applies to the real world and what you'll be doing for the rest of your life once you graduate. But yeah, and then I eventually ended up now deciding to stick around for co-term, just to kind of pursue my interest a little more, maybe kind of get a little more specialized now that I'm moving into graduate school.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, everybody. So we'll start the rotation up again. Joshua, I'll start with you here. Can you walk us through what a typical day might look like for you at your current job?
Yeah, so a typical day for me is I'm usually getting into the office and I'm seeing, so I run a few projects currently. So I'm going to start to check in with my suppliers, check in with where the project is, the Gantt charts, all those different type of things before. Can I come back to you? Can you come to me last, actually?
Yeah, sure, sure. Francesca,
Thanks.
same question for you.
Nice. Um, I think for
Yep.
me in the consulting world, things are very, very dynamic and change very fast. So no 2 days are the exact same. Um, like before, honestly, starting my job at Deloitte, I really didn't know much about what consulting is, but the way that like the industry works is that you switch projects very, very frequently. You can be on a very, very short-term project. Like I've helped out with projects for like a week at a time. Um, but I've also been on like a long-term project that I've been on for like more year and way is what you need to get done. But a lot of things in the consulting world are very much people focused and very much client focused. So there are a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, a lot of talking. So if you're the type of person where you like working with other people, you don't like being like secluded away in like a lab and working by yourself, consulting might be kind of the place for you because you're constantly working with other people, both when I am working at home and working in the office. So again, no 2 days, but most have to solve whatever problems arise because things move very, very quickly.
Thank you, Emma.
Said also don't have a typical day, but I have pretty much a lab day, data days, and report days. So on lab days, it's typically under a time crunch. So I'll start my day in the lab, and then around lunchtime, I'll meet with my boss and sort of discuss where we're at with testing, or if I've hit any roadblocks, ask him to contact other managers for support. Because frequently the testing I do is for at the request of other departments. And just continue on with testing until the end of day, and typically send out an email to any stakeholders informing them of where we're at in testing. My other days are report days or data days, which typically start with just sitting down at my computer, checking email and going through and seeing if there's any new problems from the field, checking in with those sites. We have a couple technicians on our team, so I tend to give them data reports and review what they're working on. We have a lot of requests from other departments because we connect with the field, so we're the middle point between engineering and the field. So we'll have requests to look into certain components that are problem children, and we'll pull reports and then go back. So my weekly meetings are generally with different departments and telling them how it's working in the field, and then going back to the field and informing them of, we have looked into this and here's what's going on.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Joshua, do you have a second to chime in?
Yeah, I do.
All right, go for it.
So yeah, I would agree. I think my day it depends on the day. Like I was saying, I mean, it depends on the project that I'm working on. I have a few major projects that are related to what is with the FDA that I'm constantly going through, and that kind of we meet on a weekly basis for that with new products that are coming out. But as far as the day to day, it really depends. Like some days I'll have projects where we have multiple lines down, and I'm dealing with issues from software issues to recipe management issues to issues related to people, operators on the line not knowing how to do things properly. And then I'll also sometimes get into issues where I'm going ahead and I'm sitting down with the software engineers and I'm coming up with a new way to go ahead and make our machines faster. So it really depends. And then sometimes I'm sitting down, I'm having project management meetings with regards to new lines that we're bringing in and what we need as far as what's related to those new lines. So it really depends on a given day. I can't really say 2 days are the same as well. So
Awesome. Thank you. And then Peter, from just a student perspective, over the last few years, how do you manage the expectations of doing well in class, but also, juggling the expectations of doing your internship, maybe other activities, just, from your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I would definitely say as you move through your undergrad, time management definitely becomes a very important thing, especially in your later semesters. You kind of end up settling into sort of longer assignments that take longer to do, but they'll be due like less frequently. So you'll have these like big projects you have to get done every week or every 2 weeks in some cases, and it just becomes very important to kind of manage your time well. Don't start things last minute because you're not going to end up finishing. Um, Definitely things like that. Any clubs you might join, it's just important to kind of keep a schedule, make sure you have things kind of set up, you know what you need to do for each day and things like that. But yeah, I would also recommend, I guess, just as a piece of advice, when you're making your class schedule, it's definitely important to like avoid biting off more than you can chew in any given semester. I found it very helpful to kind of ask people that I know that have taken classes that are coming up in my schedule, what the workload was like, what the class was like, just to kind of be able to manage things. So I'm not taking on too high of a workload in any given semester. That definitely helps you kind of manage things and still manage to have some free time every once in a while. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. Thank you, everybody. All right, so the next question, I am interested in gaining some perspective on navigating the mechanical engineering industry, which has traditionally been male dominated. It's no secret, right? For those who identify as women or anyone considering a career in mechanical engineering, does anybody have any advice or experiences that you'd be willing to share to help anyone who is considering a career in this industry?
I can start with this one. I think one of the best things that I did during my time at RPI was find a community. I will forever and always plug the Society of Women Engineers, also known as SWE. I was very, very involved with it during my time at RPI, and I remember as a freshman just coming into classes and lab groups where you are the only woman or one of the very few women that are in the class. It can be very, very intimidating, but having a community um, of people like in suite allowed me to have like upperclassmen informal mentors to kind of help my confidence. And over time, just knowing that I had them in my corner and they had my back and would give me advice, would help me out with things, my confidence grew. And then that intimidation and that imposter syndrome like slowly started getting less and less. So I definitely recommend, even if it's not SWE, just any sort of community where you feel like you have people that you can go to when you're experiencing any issues, when you're running into trouble. They can really make or break your during the internships that I had, they were in the manufacturing field, so a little more traditional mechanical engineering. If I had any issues, I would go to my SWE mentors and ask them, like, hey, this and this is like happening at work. Do you know how I can navigate that? Or do you have any advice? Like, I want to be more plugged into this. Do you know how I can help out with that? So just wherever you can find people that you can rely on is what I would advise.
Thank you.
I would agree. And at both of my places I've worked, they've definitely been more heavily on the male dominated side, and frequently you're either the only woman on the team or there are no other women on the team in any other teams. So it's also helpful if there are other women. I ended up becoming a good friend with somebody who's not in the engineering department, but she was in a similar male dominated field, and it's nice to just have somebody to talk to, vent to if you want to be very specific, but just somebody else who also knows what's going on. I joined SWE as a professional when I was running into a case of somewhat more of a male dominated role issues, and it's very helpful to see that it's going on elsewhere. There's also plenty of other women who are thriving in this environment, and it's not you. These people would be stubborn or difficult with any woman. So it's helpful just to remember that. And some of these people, you can wear them down eventually. Just be yourself. Always go with the data. You're your best advocate. And just figure out the methods that work. And sometimes you won't win them over, and that's fine. Somebody else will survive. Everybody else will see that you're doing fine and that this person is an outlier.
Awesome. Thank you. While we're on the topic of joining societies, professional organizations such as the Society of Women Engineers, take us back to your undergrad. Were there any sort of other professional groups that you were affiliated with, clubs, organizations on or off campus, Greek life, or other extracurriculars? This question can go out to the four of you.
I guess I could take that first,
Sure.
if no one else wants to jump in. So yeah, besides the Society of Women Engineers, I was also involved in the I Persist calculus. If you're not familiar with the program, it's something that RPI has where if you are a first year student taking Calculus 1, Chemistry 1, or Physics 1, you have your lecture, which is with your professor, you have your recitation, which is with your TA, and then you have a smaller group called your mentoring session, where you're paired with an upperclassman student. And the goal of these mentoring sessions is to help you through the content. In my case, it was calculus, but also help you navigate through RPI. And I was someone who came calculus credits and didn't use my calculus credits. I went back to Calc 1 and retook it. So like I was pretty familiar with the calculus when I was going through my mentoring program, but I really found that the mentoring program, again, just my mentor served as someone like I could ask questions to when I was just like lost. Like how do I switch like my section for our class? Like how do I where do I go to register for my new classes? Just having someone that I can ask questions to. And then even with the calculus too, she was just super helpful with showing me how math was taught at RPI, because like yes, math is math, but depending on the way you approach the instruction, it can like seem different, and that's what I was struggling with a little bit. So that really helped me. And then throughout the rest of my undergrad, I served as a mentor for the program. And I really attribute it to like my early success in like developing like really good study habits and strong study habits and being disciplined and coming up with a schedule. Outside of that, so Engineering Ambassadors program. So it's Engineering Ambassadors is a STEM outreach program where we develop presentations and hands-on activities and go to different local elementary, middle, and high schools to teach kids about engineering. So that was a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you, Francesca. Josh, Emma, Peter, any sort of
I'll go
involvements?
next.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I actually worked with Abdullah basically before Abdullah got there. So I worked at the hub for a while and also worked at the engineering, helping with advising and stuff like that. And I'd kind of be the student there that would go ahead and give the student perspective depending on classes. So if Marie was there, or Kate Stockton, or depending on who you have there now, I was the student that was kind of providing that insight from a student perspective, when students would show up to the hub and they would go ahead and ask me that question on how, how difficult the class was, or so on and so forth. I also was a part of the RPI club soccer team. So I was the president for a year, and then also joined that. And we really, spent a lot of time off the field, going ahead and mentoring and helping other students. And I would tutor from time to time some of the students, if it would be in calculus, in differential equations. So we really spent a lot of time, on and off the field, trying to give back to the younger freshmen and sophomore and juniors when I was a senior. So, get plugged in. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's what everybody's kind of sharing here, is that, you can't do it alone. And you'll realize even out in the field that nobody really does it alone. You can say that 24/7. Some people believe that everything can be done by themselves, but when you work with a team, you'll realize a lot more can be done, and they'll find the issues and the things that you don't even think about. So,
Thank you, Josh.
I commuted my entire time at RPI, so I didn't do too much with clubs. I was in symphonic band for the beginning of my first semester, but it ended up just not working out for the drive I had. I was a work study student, though, downstairs in the main office on the second floor of the JEC, with Kate Stockton and Tom Haley on the advising side. So I did a lot of prospective student tours. When students came in for, I helped them with questions. I also did a lot of work on the backside of things, helping with preparing for different engineering competitions that the main department hosted, which is just really interesting. The main department does a lot, especially those ladies downstairs. If the office is still there, I don't know. Sounds like Kate might have moved upstairs, but great
Still
group.
there.
Christmas party's great. I highly recommend going to that. Cookies. You get to see Professor Haley dressed up as Santa, if he still does that. I'm assuming he's still there, but it's a great way to meet people. Prospective student tours are interesting. You definitely find out a lot about campus that you wouldn't find out. I mean, I went to a lot of places I didn't know about doing some of those tours, and it's just interesting to see different people's perspectives of seeing the campus for the first time.
Yeah, Emma. Kate and Tom are still in that office. Tom still dresses up as Santa Claus every year. And if anybody that is watching that is not sure who Kate Stockton or Tom Haley are, they are in the main department. They are going to be your advisors after your first year and after you move on from the hub, from myself and whoever might be advising mechanical engineers over the next couple of years for first years. So, Peter, I'm going to turn it over to you. Any sort of involvements on or off campus?
Yeah, so it's kind of going to be a lot of the same for me. I'm also involved in engineering ambassadors. I know Francesca mentioned she was involved with that. That's been a pretty cool program. I joined that sophomore year, I think. It's just an outreach program that we work with. I joined it mainly I kind of wanted to develop my interpersonal skills and kind of presenting skills a little more, just to kind of have some more confidence with that moving into industry, and if I have like a class presentation or anything like that. And that's been a really fun experience. It's kind of cool to be a part of a club. I find that clubs a lot of the time help kind of rounding out those kind of non-technical skills. They're kind of very helpful for that. And also, just meeting people, making friends. It's important to have some fun and do some stuff that you enjoy while you're here as well. So yeah, that would be what I would say for that.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right, so for the alumni in the room here, so every so often students will ask us of the courses that are required. Peter, I guess you can answer this too, since you're, one more semester down here and you're in the home stretch here. So but yeah, every so often students will always ask us if courses that are required for their major are actually used in the workplace as an engineer. Do you find that to be true? And what are some skills that you learned as a student at RPI that you couldn't do without now that you're a professional?
I think for me, the manufacturing classes that I took, I think I took GMP And then I also took some manufacturing classes with Sam Chapone. And going ahead and using those, I think really played a big role for me. I think the other classes, as much as I hated thermodynamics, definitely played a big role. I think the biggest thing though that you gain from RPIs is a way to learn, right? No matter what's in front of you, if you understand how to learn, which all of those classes are really, that's all they're teaching you. That's the fundamentals. And I think if you focus so much on the class itself instead of what you're trying to get out of it, which is how to learn in maybe a different way, depending on the professor, depending on the information that's being provided to you, then you're missing the point. And I think that's the biggest thing. So I would say that all the classes, they definitely have a place, depending on what you do also in your future, because your future, everybody's future is going to be different. No one's going to do the exact same thing that I do. Nobody's going to do the exact same thing that anybody else in this group does. So you got to go ahead and make sure that you understand the fundamentals, and I think that's the biggest thing. So
Thank you.
I think I can speak to a grad school perspective. When I was doing my grad school research, a lot of the mechanical engineering courses that I took, like the mechanics-based mechanical engineering courses that I took, not thermodynamics, also was not a fan of thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, things like that. Those I used directly. Like I used the exact same thing that I learned in strength of materials and mechanical behavior of materials. I was using that in my research, as well as like all the bio and the BME courses that I was taking on the side. Or in the real world, obviously since I'm not like a traditional, like I'm not in a traditional mechanical engineering field, and I'm definitely not using my strengths and materials and my advanced cell bio in my day-to-day. But as Josh said, the best thing that RPI does is teach you how to problem solve. And I think that's the biggest thing that your engineering degree shows, is that it shows that you know how to problem solve. And once you learn those skills, you can apply them in whatever else it is you do. Like in my job, like having an engineering background is not super common, and one of the pieces of feedback that I get quite a bit is, oh wow, you think about problems really differently than the rest of us think about problems. And I directly attribute that to the way that you have to approach classes at RPI and the way you have to approach problems at RPI. So if you just keep that in mind as you're going through classes and you're like, oh my god, I'm never going to use this in my life, just treat it as exercising your brain. Even if you never use that knowledge specifically ever again in your life, you know what? You trained your brain to think in a different way, and that's will be useful in your life somehow.
Thank you, Francesca. Emma.
As a slightly more traditional mechanical engineering role, I do use thermos a lot, do a lot of testing related to the thermodynamics of our units. Thermos, strength, they all come up, but I would have to agree the problem solving skills are one of the more important things you learned at RPI. Definitely in my previous role in the company as a process engineer, I didn't use the mechanical engineering ones as much, but it's definitely a problem solving subset. Just the way you think is different. And RPI teaches you how to research. And you can really just look up, if you don't know something, you can look into it. And as part of our classes where we had to collaborate with other people, maybe not in mechanical engineering, particularly capstone, you get used to asking other people or relying on other people who are experts. So if you don't know something, you have experience with asking. And I think capstone and all those cross-disciplinary classes are definitely something I call back on that experience every day.
Cool. Peter, do you have any thoughts or anything that you wanted to include in the question as well?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with a lot of what everyone said. I think another class that's definitely important, specifically would be CAD, like learning how to use NX. That definitely comes up on pretty much every project I've worked on, I think. But yeah, a lot of classes like that, like strengths comes up a lot, elements of mechanical design, some heat transfer stuff. Yeah, kind of general classes like that, I guess. And really, like as far as the how like useful the material is. I think it's definitely useful, but I find myself a lot of the time like looking back like a couple semesters ago, I'll be like, man, I don't remember a lot of stuff that I learned in that class. But when I come to like working on a project with it, like at my internship when I was working on a few things, one of the projects I was put on was an electrical project. It was wiring an electrical box. And as a mechanical engineer, I didn't have a ton of experience with that, but I had taken electronic instrumentation, which was, I think it's one of the required classes that we take. But that made it a lot easier, even though I didn't remember a lot of the material from the class. It's a lot easier to remind yourself of what you learned than to have to relearn everything on a new project. So that would definitely be, that's kind of the way I look at it a lot of the times. Like I'm saving myself a lot of work later if this were to come up, however infrequently. It's a lot easier to relearn something than to learn it for the first time.
Cool, thank you guys. So going off of that question then, are there any courses or electives that you have all taken, such as econ or extra science classes or just management classes, that would strengthen a candidate's background while searching for career opportunities in mechanical engineering? Peter, it might be fresh in your mind. Maybe we'll let the alumni kind of think a little bit about that for a little bit while you answer that.
Sure, yeah, I can start. I mean, I'm a econ minor, so I've been taking a lot of economics classes. I really like, I kind of look at it as like regardless of what industry you go into, like you are working at a job that is, functioning within the economy as a whole. And I just kind of like understanding just on a broad sense, like what my company is trying to do day to day and kind of understanding the incentive structure that I'm working within. So I found that very useful just to kind of have some clarity as far as like what I'm actually doing and how that contributes to the company's goal, like as a whole, wherever I end up working. So
Awesome. Thank you. Josh, Emma, Francesca, do you remember of any sort of classes that you took that weren't really necessarily requirements that you found to be helpful?
I could speak to that. I think I took some STS classes. And I think some of those STS classes, like science, technology, and society, I remember specifically. And it kind of just gave more perspective on some of the things that we build and some of the things that we make, and kind of having a little bit more of a background of sometimes we think we're making it for one reason, but we're really making it for a different reason. Um, and sometimes when you work, for example, like Lockheed Martin, and you work for Regeneron, or is it Regeneron? No, not
Yep.
Regeneron. Yeah, so it could be Regeneron, or it could be even, for example, with some of the stuff that I make at Boston Loam, right? To getting kind of more of a perspective on like what it's actually supposed to be used for, and some of the downfalls that some of these companies have, and the things that they miss, or the things that the engineers are not willing to speak up about. Because sometimes you're put into a sticky situation, or you're put in a sticky spot where it's like you need to make this, and you're like, well, I don't necessarily believe in that. And it kind of gives a more of perspective on sometimes maybe when engineers kind of stepped up to the plate and said, hey, I'm not going to do this, or I disagree with this. So it kind of gave more of a background to some of the things that we actually make on a daily basis, or what we work on. So I think that was one important class for sure.
Thank you, Josh. Francesca, Emma.
I took a intro to management class while I was at RPI, and I found that one very helpful. Definitely in the workforce, just better understanding. It also, as an engineer, especially a process engineer, part of what you do does involve pseudo management, at least dealing with employees, a lot of training. And I did a lot of parts and stuff like that when I was over in my old position. And it just, a lot of that stuff, I just kept going back to that class. I actually reviewed my notes from that class and just found it really helpful.
Yeah, and I think the beauty about mechanical engineering in general is that it is such a broad field, and you can do a lot with it. So the beauty and the curse, that it'd be hard to figure out what you want to specialize in. So what I did for mine, I've alluded to this in my previous responses, is use my free electives to kind of to use them as like my like pseudo specialization. I was taking VME classes just to make sure I was still getting like the bio background, without like just sticking like solely with mechanical engineering. But outside of the VME classes, it's also really important to remember that RPI it's a tough school, and they're like, I definitely recommend taking classes that also you just find enjoyable, just because I find them enjoyable. I participated in summer arch, and over summer arch I took a mindfulness class, and every time we started this class, we would go outside, sit on the grass, and just meditate for like 10 minutes. And like that's how we started off the class. And like it was really nice. And we learned a lot of skills in that class about how to be mindful. Like I learned a lot of skills about like mindfulness, like as a theory, but just also like how to use it in practice. And like I try to use that in my everyday life. I would recommend any of like those psych courses just because they're a lot of fun. Something that I wish I took advantage of and I didn't because I was always just like, oh, I'm not gonna have enough time. But I really like learning languages, and RPI has a program where you can transfer in credits from local colleges like HBCC, Russell Sage, and take the language classes at their school, and it like just counts as like basically if you're taking an RPI. Not exactly. I wish I had that because I love learning languages, and that's just a skill that you can utilize in your job later. Like it's always something good to have in your back pocket. But yeah, that's my advice for that.
If there was a language you could learn, Francesca, what would it be?
Oh, Spanish. Spanish and Italian.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So moving on. A couple more questions left, you guys. And this goes to everybody on the panel. What course or courses did you find most challenging while you were at RPI, and what tactics did you use, or what resources did you use to take advantage of? And yeah, what kind of advice would you like to share about that?
Well, I ended up taking two courses twice. I took CAD twice because the first time I had a lot of difficulty with the projects, and I also had some computer difficulties. And at the end of the course, I wasn't satisfied with my grade. I didn't think it showed the knowledge that I had, so I retook it. I had some flexibility within my coursework. I ended up taking 3 or 4 classes at HBCC, and I was able to transfer some classes in through high school. And same thing with strengths of materials. I struggled with it the first time around. At the end of it, I wasn't really happy with my grade. I'm a mechanical engineer. I knew I should have done better, so I retook it. It's not a terrible thing. You really should do it for your GPA if you have the ability. And second time around, I felt like I had a much better knowledge of the class. It was also easier taking it the second time around just because I'd already done it. I took it with the same professor. I mean, it it was embarrassing to admit that I was going to take the same class. I kind of was embarrassed going in and seeing the same professor again, like here I am again, but it definitely helped. I have so much more confidence. I love strengths of materials now. It's one of my favorite classes that I took, and I took some more classes later on building upon it, and it's definitely helped.
Well, thank you, Emma, for announcing that to everybody. It's more common than you think. A lot of people have to retake classes. It's just one of those things. And like you said, the second time around, it's always a little bit easier. You know what to expect. You've been there, done that sort of thing, but this time you have that advantage going into it. But Francesca, Joshua, Peter, any classes that you found challenging, or Peter, that you're currently finding challenging at the moment?
I can go next, I guess. But the class that I found the most challenging would probably be elements of mechanical design. It's kind of like it sort of builds off of strength, so it's a lot of like, which is already a pretty challenging course. So it's kind of, a lot of that like kind of leveled up a little bit. But yeah, I found that really challenging. I took it over the summer too, which was probably not a great idea just because it's kind of truncated and the summer session is a little more chaotic. But yeah, that I just found to be a very difficult class, just content wise. A good resource that I use a lot is definitely office hours. I know people tell you to go to office hours all the time, but it is really actually helpful to be able to talk to the professor and kind of answer questions one on one, or even a TA. But yeah, that would kind of be my advice for difficulties in classes. Is definitely utilize if you can talk to the professor. They're the expert. They're making all the tests. That they're definitely the authority to go to if you have that opportunity. So.
Cool. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, I can speak next. The class that I struggled with, I think the most was just in the beginning, was actually physics. And it wasn't because I didn't necessarily understand the concept. I think some of the struggles that I had was just test taking in general. But for that class in particularly, I think the professor made the difference the second time that I took it. I think one of the other things was, and I think Francesca kind of touched upon it as well, is using other students, right? Because I was at that time, I think I was really trying to do RPI by myself instead of using, the people around me to help me. Um, and so I think, going ahead and kind of taking it from a different perspective allowed me kind of, as I kind of got into much tougher classes than physics, to kind of make it a lot easier. So, using all of the resources, because the students, if you really think about it, most students actually struggle or have the same question that you do. They're just afraid to actually ask that question or to admit that they're struggling with the same thing. So, going to maybe students that are, that are smarter, or, that have, or really understand the information, and, asking them how do they think about it or how they break it down, makes a big difference, because you really want to understand the mindset of what it takes to actually be able to solve the problem, right?
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, and I
And
think for
then
me, the most difficult class I took, it's not super relevant for mechanical engineers anymore because I don't think it's a requirement, but it was LITEC. LITEC is Laboratory Introduction to Embedded Controls, so it's like a cross between mechanical and electrical and like computer systems engineering, and I just it just wasn't it wasn't a good time, especially because that class at the time it was like a senior level class for like basically like an intro level class for electrical and computer systems engineers, and it was a time when they were like phasing out that class, so it was just filled mostly with like electrical and computer systems engineers that like knew what they were doing. This was their life, like this is what they wanted to do, and I was just clueless. Like I had no coding experience before, and like required some code. So just to echo what everyone else said is like I lived in office hours. Like the TAs, they knew me personally. Like they would ask if I did show up and then I showed up the next time, like, oh, like where were you last time? Like you have to not like you can't be too proud to like say when you don't know something or say when you need help. Because like everyone's been alluding to, like you're not the only one who's struggling, and the earlier you ask for help the better it is. Like if I think back to like my freshman year, I know a lot of times IEA, Introduction to Engineering Analysis, is like a sticking point for a lot of students, just because it's like the first time that you're seeing this sort of information, or the first time you have to like process, like it's your first like real engineering course, and it can be difficult to like wrap your head around the content. And I was finding that in the very beginning, but I was told about this thing called ALAC. What ALAC stands for, I could not tell you, but it's basically like a peer tutoring program for those like those beginning like freshman level classes that a lot of people take. So like your calculus, your introduction to engineering analysis, your chem ones, where on set days there'll be some upperclassmen there where you can go and just ask questions to. And so like I started going to ALAC, and like I was getting through problems that I wasn't able to get through by yourself, because you can't do everything by yourself. And the point where I was doing back, so that even if I didn't have a question right then and there, I like as soon as I got stuck, I could just go ask for help. Or even if I wasn't working with one of the tutors, I could work with other students that were also in ALAC too. So there just are a lot of resources out there. It's on you to find those resources and actually utilize them and ask the right questions to get the most out of them.
That's awesome advice from all of you guys, and it was very wide range of different classes, but the struggle is real, and there are resources out there. There are the professors that are out there. So I'm really happy that you guys all kind of mentioned those, those pieces there. All right, so last question before we go on to any Q&As from the audience here. So this can kind of go to a little bit of everybody, but just what are your opinions on earning a graduate degree or dual majoring or minoring with something to complement your undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering? And in your experience, do you think it's something that's necessary in this career path? Who would like to go first?
I'll take this one. I'll go first.
Thanks, Josh.
It depends. And I say that it really depends. Depends on what you want to do in life too, because there's a lot to think about. I think a lot of people go in and say that, hey, getting the master's is great, and it's supposed to equal an extra bonus or an extra bump. The reality is it may not equal that, because there are a lot of other people that are walking out of the door with a master's, and also some places don't hold the master's the same way it used to be, and it doesn't maybe necessarily hold the same weight. Sometimes they actually take into account more of your experience than they do weighing what your master's actually is. So I think if you want it for the knowledge, it's good for the knowledge, and you got to realize you're going to take it for that. But if you think that it's going to give you maybe an extra boost, as far as money is concerned, when you're walking out the door, it may not do that, and you got to be okay with that, because you really gotta sit down and think that it is going to be for the knowledge, and it may help you later on when you want to go to management. Let's say you get an MBA or you get a master's and you're jumping. So, for example, like myself, where I was jumping into a completely different field, the master's actually helped me be able to land a job in pharmaceutics. But if you're just going straight for a mechanical engineering master's, it may not necessarily be the most beneficial. And I know that's kind of hard to hear for a lot of people that are kind of going into that. But it's the kind of the truth in which the market that we're in at the current moment. And like I said, it's different for everybody, because it really just depends on where you're going. I think if you're getting a master's, for example, in computer science, I think it really makes a big difference. I think there's a lot where you're going to learn as far as the difference between undergrad and grad. But for other industries, it's just solely a mechanical engineer. I don't necessarily know if it would make that big of a difference. And I kind of use that as an example. So, for example, my brother, he got his master's in mechanical engineering as well. And him and me walking out of RPI and him having a master's in mechanical engineering, and we kind of applied for the same job, and I got the same amount of money that he got. So that kind of balances out in the wash. So it's just things to just weigh. I'm not saying to go one way or the other, but something to just think about. That's what I would say.
Thanks, Josh.
Well, when I graduated from RPI, I was actually in the co-terminal program. I had started it for a MBA, and at that point, I also had a job lined up at Plug, and I decided that I was going to go with a career focus rather than continuing with my education and getting the master's. And at that point, it was mostly a personal decision. I had the job lined up, and I was sick of school because my mother was a teacher. I grew up in a school. I just was done. And about 2 years ago, so 2 years into working full time, I kind of had reached the point where I wanted to know more. I missed school. I missed using my brain every day. What I was doing was getting dull. And that's when I decided I was going to go back and get my master's. And I did I'm going for a straight master's in mechanical engineering. And I made that decision because I am currently doing a lot of testing and I'd like to switch to more of the simulation side of things because I'd like to do both because I've seen how in the past we've tried to chase simulations and it doesn't work out. But I'm doing it mostly for knowledge. And I think for me, the gap was good. I have more knowledge to go into my classes with. I have the industry knowledge and it's helped out. My first two classes were a engineering mathematics course that had a paper that directly connected to something I worked with at my internship, and my other course was project management. And from working at the company I've worked at for 3 years, I've seen many different ways of project management. So it's nice to go in with applications and also have the course to immediately apply to something at work because I took what I learned in the course and started doing my next project planning that way as opposed to the old way I was using.
Thank you, Emma. And then, yeah, Peter, if you could touch, I know you said you were doing co-term as well, but can you touch on a little bit about the minor degree or the minor that you're in, and how was that like juggling those classes with your mechanical engineering classes?
Yeah, so I'm a econ minor. I've taken a lot of econ classes here. I would definitely say, just compared to engineering, they're definitely like they're not quite as difficult. Just I mean, a lot of the math you're doing in engineering is going to be more complicated. It's going to feel like a little bit of a relief moving into econ, but it's definitely kind of a jarring shift, I guess, going from one class to another. Sometimes you're just moving from it's just two very different kind of subjects you're talking about. But yeah, I just like having that kind of well-rounded understanding of the industry, I guess. And without the extensive industry experience that a lot of you guys have, I have like if just in a few kind of interviews I've had for internships, it's definitely been something that interviewers have been interested in. I can say that it's definitely like appealed to them. They've been definitely drawn to that aspect of my resume. So I think it's definitely worth looking at. I know it's econ's kind of boring. I think engineering is definitely a lot more interesting, but it's cool to know, and I think it's helpful to know also. So yeah.
Thanks, Peter. And then Francesca, did you have anything that you wanted to include in there as well?
Yeah, I would say that it's also important to look at what type of master's that you would consider doing. Like
Mm.
for me, the main reason why I did my master's was because the tail end of my undergraduate career. So one of like the goals I had going into my undergrad was I wanted to do research, but I didn't have the opportunity to because of COVID. Everyone was home. Undergrads weren't allowed in the lab. So I knew I was like back and forth on a master's. But I knew that depending on the professor that I worked with, the type of work that I would do, I would get that lab research because I had did some lab work during one of my internships and I enjoyed it. So I wanted to see what it would be like in more of like an academic setting. So that's kind of why I did it. So just to echo both what Josh and Emma said, it's like you have to have the right reason for doing it. And be in the right headspace for doing it. Otherwise, it's probably like if you're just doing it just to do it, it's probably not the best course of action. But if you have a good reason and the timing is right for you, I would say it could be a valuable thing just for yourself.
And
Awesome.
maybe to touch on one last thing there, if you
Yes.
can, and I think maybe Emma, I don't know, in your case, is Plug paying for it?
Yes, they are.
There you
So
go.
yeah, that's also the other big thing. If you stick around at a company long enough, they will pay for it.
Exactly. So I think that's also a big thing is if you're you're on the fence about it, you can always go back, right? Because you would rather use the company's money than use your own money. Because I know that's a big thing right now with just student debt and everything. So make sure you take that into account because all of that is a factor. So I know that's a little bit more in depth than probably what most students would want to hear, but take that into account because companies will go ahead and spend extra money for you to get extra knowledge. So
Good intel, Josh. Thank you for including that. And thank you everybody for, all of your advice, your experiences, talking us through your journeys, that sort of thing. Couple more minutes left. Kelly, Kim, maybe one more question, two more questions, depending on time. Was there anything that you were curious about that you wanted to ask our mechanical engineers here?
Question. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
All right. So you guys talked about challenging classes. Were there any classes that surprised you on how much you enjoyed it? And that can be like a Haas class, it can be a free elective, just something that you just kind of jumped into and then you're like, oh, this is actually really great to know. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that one. What I got my minor in, which was science, technology, and society, I kind of thought, I remember Marie Deffenbacher kind of told me, she's like, I think this would be interesting for you, Josh. And I just kind of took it out of the whim at the time. And it kind of gravitated. There was just so much behind engineering that I really never knew about, and how inventions came about, and, what is it, as a CEO or as an inventor, right? Because that's kind of where I see myself, is I'm more of an inventor, and kind of seeing that cross link on how engineering kind of cross links with history, and seeing how inventions kind of came about, like I was saying before. So I think that class sparked me to get my minor. And I never really would have gotten that minor if I maybe didn't get that push to kind of go into more of the history, because I like history and I enjoy history, but I never thought that that those classes in that class set would really kind of focus in on that. So
I can also jump in here. Actually, it was one of the last classes that I took. It was during co-term. It's one of those classes, grad course, it counts for both. Um, and it was taught by Professor Johnson Samuel. Um, and it was, oh my God, I literally just had the name. I'm so sorry, but it was not machine dynamics. It was very similar to machine dynamics, and I'm forgetting the name, and it's really bothering me. But it was just the way that Professor Johnson Samuel just explained things, it really just brought me back to why I chose engineering in the first place. He is such a great professor. He's so engaging, and he just really in their concerns. I remember he had like an initial survey we had to fill out, and you had to put in like some concerns. And I had like put in like some concerns that I just have for classes in general. And he reached out to me personally. Like he sent me an email like, "Hey, I saw this like response in the survey. I saw this that you're concerned about this. Like you shouldn't worry about this. We have this, this, and this in place. I'm here to help you." And I would go to his office hours every week, and he was just like, I would explain what I was like struggling with in a problem, and he would like put himself in my shoes and try to understand my thought process, and he'd be like, "Oh, so you're thinking in this like logical flow. I see why you're thinking that, but there's an issue with your logic right here. Let's do this instead. Okay, we have that piece fixed, and now you can go back." And I've never had a professor just be that um like give that much like personalized attention. Like he was just such a great person, and it's really bothering me that I cannot remember the name of this class. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's a really great way to like.
Is that engineering dynamics?
Yes, it was. No, it's not engineering dynamics because it was the 4,000 level version of it. I'm gonna look
Mm.
it up, and I'll get back to you guys. I'm gonna try to find what it is.
Say the class that I enjoyed the most that I didn't anticipate was yet again that management class that I took. It was completely different from every other class I'd taken at RPI at that point. I took it as a first semester sophomore year. It was the first class I had where we had done a lot of presentations, and it was also a case study based class. So it was just a very different type of learning. The professor who I had actually ended up retiring after that year, but he was just fantastic. He really made you think in a different way. And he was also the first professor that I ever really felt comfortable just going down to his office with questions. And there was a couple times where I had something else come up with like a internship type thing, then I was able to just go and ask him about it. And he was just really, really a great professor, more than the class, but it was just a really enjoyable class, and it really made me feel very interested in learning at RPI.
Engineering Mechanisms was the class. Cool. Awesome. Oh, Peter, and then did you also have a class?
Yeah, I can choose really quickly, I guess. One class that I was pretty surprised that I enjoyed was heat transfer, actually. And it was mainly because I didn't really enjoy thermo, and I was kind of indifferent about fluids. But going into heat transfer, it was just kind of I just found the content like interesting, like relative to, and I had already worked at my internship, and we had used a lot of stuff, or we would have used a lot of stuff from heat transfer in the internship. So it was kind of cool getting to look back and be like, oh, that's why this was set up the way it was, and kind of see things like from that practical experience that I had. So it was kind of cool to get those questions answered and kind of get to look at something that I hadn't really thought about, which is just how insulation is set up and how to set up like heat transfer mechanisms and things like that.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. And Kim, thank you for asking that question. Kelly, did you have one more question too? All right. Awesome. Well, if you all made it this far, thank you very much for sticking around and watching / listening to the Mechanical Engineering Industry Hour. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to us in the hub. More than happy to sit down with you and talk a little bit more about this. So thank you very much for being here.